Hi, David Lee here from Human Nature at Work. I wanted to give you a quick sneak preview of the upcoming webinar that I'll be doing with Dr. Jim Pepitone on February 19th, called Increasing Knowledge Worker Productivity, a New Opportunity for Learning and Development Professionals. In this brief interview excerpt, I just want to speak to, or actually have Dr. Jim Pepitone speak to, what we mean by a new opportunity for learning and development professionals. One of the things I asked him to speak briefly on and to give an example of is the issue that I'm sure you can relate to as a learning and development professional when you've been asked to provide a, air quote, solution to a problem in the form of a seminar, when you realized that the root causes and the sources of the problem are much more systemic, and no 90-minute, half-day, or full-day seminar is going to provide an adequate solution. And so one of the things that I asked Jim if he would mind sharing is an example of some of his work where he helped a learning and development team provide a true solution to their employer's problem. And so it'll give you sort of a sneak preview of the difference the material that we'll be sharing on the 19th can make, and both the enjoyment of your work and also your ability to make a substantial impact in your organization. Recently, I asked Jim to speak to the frustration that learning and development professionals oftentimes have when being asked to provide a seminar solution to a problem that's truly systemic, and then to give an example of what can happen when learning and development professionals are involved in providing a more systemic solution.
It is frustrating. It seems as though management's priority is taking action, even if based on loose assumptions about what's causing the challenge and about how to influence behavior or to solve the problem. You remind me, David, of a situation in which I was hired by a COO of a major company division to check out problems at a semi-automated production facility with about 600 people. And by semi-automated, I mean to say that the production was ultimately dependent on people. The client explained that the VP in charge of the production operation was experiencing all kinds of people problems, high turnover, employee complaints, even lawsuits. But the VP was placing the blame on the plant's new hire training and onboarding programs. He imagined that if these programs were working as they should, that the operation wouldn't have these problems. So in this case, training was supposedly the source of the problem. And we got started, as we normally do, by interviewing people who might have a helpful perspective. And not surprising, when we talked to the training folks at the plant, they not only understood the problem, they had recommended solutions to the VP, but he wouldn't try them. Turned out the source of the problem was the VP. He was a technically gifted engineer, but he was horrible with people. And he was driving everyone who worked with him to their wits' end. The resulting frustration and mistrust was cascading throughout the organization, right down to frontline supervisors and production workers. It was really quite a mess. We ended up informally partnering with training to develop our recommendations, and together then figured out how to redesign the organization and management systems, both to lessen the VP's negative impact on people, but then to also restore the organization's effectiveness. My client, again the COO, agreed to all the recommendations, and he even got the VP's okay. It's kind of interesting to note that the premise on which he got the VP's okay was that the changes would dramatically reduce the time and attention it was taking for the VP to deal with all these people issues. I'm not sure how much detail you want, David, but I think it's worth pointing out how much input the training people had into the recommendations. because training had deep insight into behavior throughout the organization, we were able to see the need to redesign the production manager and frontline supervisor roles in order to emphasize employee relations and support responsibilities, which had been omitted up till then. We also worked together to create 2 new positions to buffer and stabilize the organization, a senior production manager role directly between the VP and production managers, and a lead supervisor role to oversee the development of the supervisors. Training also developed a year-long human relations oriented management development program for everyone in the 2 management roles. And then next, to restore organizational effectiveness by getting everybody refocused on their work, training created a year-long skill development program for the various production areas, and tapping some expertise that we found in the training department. This instruction was mostly simulation-based, so as to enable disciplined practice and genuine skill development. It was really quite effective. Workers loved it, and it was a powerful initiative to get them refocused on their work. And then finally, and although this doesn't sound like something training departments get involved with, training folks had a key role in redesigning the performance management system. It had been based mostly on performance controlled and measured by machines, criteria outside the direct control of the production workers. So together we redesigned the system with new performance objectives, assessment, and incentives to focus more on the human components of work, such as skill level, conscientiousness, teamwork, and so on. Very effective. A couple other things. Partnering with training not only more effectively resolved the problem, but the needed consulting work, in other words, the work that my firm had to do, was cut roughly in half, reducing the client's cost for outside assistance and greatly increased the project's ROI. And one final thing, the collaboration provided an excellent professional development experience for the plant's training pros, of course, but even more important, it left in place capable people committed to maintaining the redesigned systems. We often have a problem with initiatives when there's no one left in place to help maintain them and keep them operating. In this case, we didn't have that problem because the training people had been so involved.
So let me just quickly recap some of the main points of what Jim said. So, point number 1, opportunities for performance improvement often show up as people problems, whether labeled as poor engagement or turnover, etc. Notice that what motivated the buyer was helping the VP minimize the effort that he was putting into managing people. And that's one of the huge byproducts of this approach, and oftentimes a selling point for managers is it minimizes the amount of time they have to spend managing people and also minimizes the emotional wear and tear. Notice also that one of the aspects of the solution was to design the VP's job in a way that minimizes his people skill weaknesses. There's also the point of, which is obvious, yet oftentimes typically doesn't happen in organizations, the gold mine of information available when you actually listen to the people who are doing the work to determine what's going on. Also notice the fundamental principle that when the workers' human needs weren't met, their work suffers. So whether it's the need for control, the need for respect, the need to know your input matters, etc. And that's another example of how performance improvement, the original presenting problem, oftentimes comes disguised in the form of employee relations issues. Also, as part of the solution was developing workarounds to restore organizational effectiveness. And notice that training had a lot of underutilized perceptions and expertise to offer, and I know you can relate to that. Having been an internal training person, I know how oftentimes you're not a prophet in your own land. And then with some support, training had huge potential and ability as an internal consultant. And because they became the internal consultant and internal expert, that laid the foundation for sustainable results because the knowledge and expertise was in-house. It wasn't simply an external consulting firm fostering dependence. Also, as you notice, a major takeaway is the solution was more than just training, although training was part of the solution. And then last but not least is recognizing that when you solve people problems at their source, it's way more effective than obviously trying to ignore or to treat the symptoms. So I hope you found that scenario both eye-opening and also encouraging in terms of the possibilities that await you, if you will, by knowing how to communicate your ability to provide value in a much larger context than just providing seminars. So there you have it. Hope to see you on February 19th. In the meantime, if you have questions or requests, please feel free to put comments below.